Gentry Burns is accused of infecting women with HIV without telling them he's tested positive for the disease. WESH2 News spoke with one of Burns' ex-girlfriends who says she's hoped for this day for years.
Gentry scares me. He terrifies me. I think about it every day. And I just want what's best for my son.
Burns is the biological father of Allison Barker's son. The two went out during their years at Spruce Creek High School in Port Orange. She believes she is one of the only women to have a relationship with Burns and not contract HIV. Allison says Burns physically attacked her in 2011 and she broke up with him. Later, she spoke with another ex-girlfriend who said they both tested positive and Burns was lying about it to other women. They decided to act.
We got to stop him because he's mentally messing up all of these women and he's telling them that he doesn't have it and he does have it.
Allison tells us she has spent the last few years talking to Burns' partners and trying to convince them to tell law enforcement.
You have to accept that you have this disease now, and it's emotional. I mean, I broke down and cried with a lot of these women.
On Thursday, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office announced Burns will face 3 charges of failing to inform sexual partners about an HIV infection. Deputies believe other women could be infected and have not come forward. The Sheriff's Office says Gentry Burns was already in the Volusia County Jail for an unrelated case. With these new charges, he's being held here on no bond. In Volusia County, Chris Guardaro, WESH2 News.
Now, Allison says that she never filed charges against Burns for attacking her back in 2011.
Hello, everyone. You're live with King Sigma. Had some technical difficulties with one of the links, but hopefully the audience was able to see the clip from the local Delatona News regarding the man that they call Gentry Crotch Burns, and he will be our case study number 2 in this ongoing Surviving Bottom Shelf Brad series. And I hope that you took the time. I hope that you took the time to, listen to what was being said in regards to Gentry Burns and the allegations against him. He's currently in custody down there in Volusia County Jail. But we're going to get to that a little bit later. I just want to give some breaking news on this same hand. Same hand is the esoteric term for Halloween. In sports, the Washington Nationals won their first World Series in 7 games over the Houston Astros. In politics, things got very interesting today when the Democratic-led U.S. House voted to formalize a $100 million impeachment inquiry against the 45th president, Donald Trump. The vote was 232 to 196 along party lines, except there were 2 Democrats that did vote against the impeachment inquiry. They believe that it's futile, like many others do. But hey, they have $100 million of taxpayers' money to spend. I guess they say, what the hell? In regards to the possibility of conviction, that will be left to the Senate. And in the history of America, only 2 other U.S. presidents have been impeached by the House, and neither was removed. And that would be Andrew Johnson, who was the 17th president of the United States. He was impeached on February 24th, 1868. And Bill Clinton, the 42nd president of the United States, who was impeached on December 19th, 1998. So if this whole impeachment does go through before the end of the year and the Senate holds a trial, the Clinton trial back in 98 was about 3 weeks long. So we assume that it'll be a 3 or 4 week trial at the Senate level. It takes 75% of the senators to vote for removal to remove a U.S. president. And if they remove Donald Trump, he would be the first U.S. president ever impeached and convicted and removed from office. And if that does happen, basically Mike Pence, the vice president, would become president of the United States, at least through the next election. And I think he would actually be even more rightward leaning than a Donald Trump. So this little $100 million political theater show will be interesting to watch, but it's just another way to distract and blow money instead of spending money and investing the time on issues that relate to the average person in America. So that's your politics. And then one final note from the business news. In U.S.-China trade talks, China doubts long-term trade deal possible with President Trump. The Chinese negotiators remain concerned about President Donald Trump in their negotiations, and they say that his impulsive behavior and nature is throwing the trade talks in a chaos right now. And then he has this whole impeachment thing in the background. So that's that. Just in regards, a little note on what people call Halloween here in the West. If you do a little bit of history into Halloween, the actual term for Halloween is it has like European pagan origins, and they call it in the Celtic Druid cultures, they call it Samhain. And in some of the other pagan cultures, they call it Halimas. But in general, Halloween means all holy evening. And it's what stood out to me about looking into the history of Halloween is that it has a lot to do with the seasons and, going from winter to spring, spring to summer, summer to fall, et cetera, et cetera. So the 31st to November 1st is considered like a gateway between two worlds in these pagan cultures. And they consider it like the barrier breaks down on October 31st to November 1st. And it allows the spirits within the pagan demon religion to come forward and have interactions and sexual relations with human beings. So that's Halloween for you. Just a little note for those that are, like history. But okay. So anyways, getting back to Gentry Burns. So Gentry Burns' case is kind of a add-on to the situation with Jason Roger Pope that I discussed last month. That situation happened in South Carolina, and this situation with Burns' arrest occurred in Florida. So if you're familiar with the Daytona Beach, Orlando area, that was the area that he was operating in. And part of this whole Surviving Bottom Shelf Brad series is about Black men freeing their minds. It's about Black men responding to the open misandry in America right now. See, the thing about being the person that's the underdog and the person that's beaten down, as I say all the time, Black men are the most alienated, marginalized, and envied men in the world. So the society has to conspire to keep us beaten down and downtrodden. And a lot of it has to do with psychological games. And one of the psychological games that the white male worshipers play is they want to put your average everyday white boy Waldo on a pedestal. And everything he does is good and everything that you do is bad. So I'm highlighting the evil on a very evil day for some people. This is the day that the devil walks the earth. My grandfather, I've talked about him a lot. And, he was always big into the church. And he would, he gave me like this little children's Bible that was like a comic book. And, before he kicked me out the church at 10 years old. But I used to actually like that book, man. And I liked the little proverbs that he would read to me and stuff like that. But I liked it not for the religious aspect of it, but I just always been attracted to knowledge and truth and information. And this one proverb and maxim from 1 Peter 5:8 that I just always liked it because of the way it was stated. And it said that, to be alert and of sober mind, because your enemy, the devil's, prowls around looking and roam. And he prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And he, in that maxim from 1 Peter 5:8, they compare the devil to like a lion. And it's an easy thing to visualize. Even as a kid, you picture like this famished lion just walking around for something to eat. And that's what a lot of these bottom shelf Brads represent. I call them Brad STD 1000s because they operate more like bioterrorists. Because, what we learned from the Jason Pope situation is that while these white male worshipers were saying how much this male man loves them, he was saying that it wasn't even about sexual pleasure for him at all. It was actually a form of violence. And then it was also a form of retribution and plots against Black men. He said it himself, that he wanted to infect these women so they would go back and infect their boyfriends, their husbands, or any other Black men that they were sleeping with. So, these Brad STD 1000s, they're operating on some real bioterroristic vibe. And because of this white male worship culture in America, these dudes think that they really have diplomatic immunity, and that one of the benefits of their white male privilege compared to our breathing while black curse. So, you know, the breathing while black male curse is in comparison and juxtaposed to their diplomatic immunity and white privilege as white males. So they don't give a shit about the laws in these states. Luckily, South Carolina and Florida are a part of the minority of states that still have these HIV laws on the books, because only 20 states currently have the HIV laws on the books. And remember, one of the goals of the Democrats is to overthrow those laws. And that is currently going on right now with the Democratic platform that will be announced in July when they have their convention. So their goal is to actually repeal the HIV laws and the other STI laws that are actually on the books to protect you and I. I mean, just think about that. So you got a guy like this, this Gentry Crotch Burns, and he's going all around, you know, Florida, and they're saying that he was in Hawaii, he was in South Carolina, and he hit the whole East Coast. The only reason that we're aware of this guy is because the women that you heard talking came forward. So far, 3 or 4 women have come forward. His girlfriend came forward that he has a child with. You heard her speaking. And she was saying herself that he was roaming all over the East Coast because of his employment, and he was infecting women all during the period. This is what stood out to me about Jason Pope versus this BT, this Brad STD 1000. He was only 26 years old when they arrested him last month, man. Jason Pope, when he got arrested, was 42. He found out he had HIV at least in his 30s, maybe before, but he knew he had it in his 30s for sure. This dude, based on the detective's information, he was diagnosed with HIV at 20 years old. 20 years old. And he possibly had it since he was like 16. Who knows? We don't even. So what I'm saying is that you've had this whole myth and narrative that's been put out about Black American men as if we're these sexual predators around every corner, that we're looking for someone to devour. But the whole time, right under your nose, these Brad STD 1000s are creeping all over America, infecting hundreds of women, which leads to thousands of infections. This is just 2 people that I've talked about so far. Jason Pope, over 1,000. This dude in the hundreds. And we're only getting this information because Florida, because of the way that their law is set up, it's a felony to transmit HIV to someone. And we can get into that statute. So I want to read to you guys from the Florida statutes regarding this law that the Democrats want to overturn. I just can't believe that the current Democratic Party is trying to overturn the laws that protect you people. This is a violation of what is most valuable to a person. Many people say next to your financial stability, they say health is definitely, if not above it, at least on par with having wealth in America. Your health, man. You can't get that back once it's gone for the most part. You can win and lose money any given day. But as your body deteriorates, it has to deteriorate at some point, you know? So you got these Democrats that want to overturn the laws that Florida have. So in Florida, their HIV and sexually transmissible disease law is under Chapter 384 of the 2019 Florida statutes. And I'm going to give you a little bit of history on that law. So the title of the law, 384.21, is Control of Sexually Transmissible Disease Act. Now, this was the reason why that legislature in Florida even passed these laws in the first place. They say the legislature finds and declares that sexually transmissible diseases constitute a serious and sometimes fatal threat to the public and individual health and welfare of the people of the state and to visitors to the state. The legislature finds that the incidence of STDs is rising at an alarming rate, and that these diseases result in significant social, health, and economic costs, including infant and maternal mortality, temporary and lifelong disability, and premature death. Now, they said they passed these laws to protect the public at large from men like Jason Roger Pope and Gentry Crotch Burns. But you got these leftists, these insane individuals that want to make it legal to pass HIV to you, me, and everyone else. And we already see what Jason Pope has done. We've already seen what Gentry Burns is doing. Can you imagine what will happen? Let's say the Democrats take power. In 2 years, they pass this act that overturns all of these state laws that protect the public and the individual health. Everyone's going to be walking around with HIV. And why? Because it's very expensive to live when you got HIV. Those little pill cocktails that they have, man, some of those pills be costing like $10,000 a month. Go look that up on Big Pharma's site, how much they make off of these HIV medications. A 30-day supply of some of these drugs nets those companies like $10,000 a month just off one person. And with the way that insurance is going and the battle between the Republicans and Democrats, we don't know what the state of insurance is going to be for most people 3-4 years or in the next term, 2020 to 24. We don't know. So you got them wanting to put all these people at risk for HIV and have no ability to sue these people and to get justice in the courts for someone that knowingly goes out and destroys lives. So that's why I say your Brad STD 1000 is a roaring lion looking to devour someone. And because of their white privilege, they don't care. And that's what makes it so disrespectful in this black male YouTube space and in the general black YouTube space to allow these kind of messages to get out that somehow these bottom shelf Brads are superior to you as a black man. I disagree with that. I'm going to judge people based off their character and their action. And these are inferior individuals. And they're out there looking for your daughter, your sister, even your wife or girlfriend that's cheating on you. They're looking for her too. And it's not because what she thinks it is. She tells herself, this bottom shelf Brad loves me. Waldo loves me. Chad loves me. He don't care about you. At best, you're just something to ghetto gag. At worst, he's using you as an incubator for bio warfare against the same people that you claim that you care so much about, the community. So these dudes have been weaponized against your general black American population. And I'm putting this information out there because you brothers need to be woke on this. Because let's be honest, some of you dudes have internalized this misandry as well. You low-key think some of this shit is true about what they tell you about bottom shelf Brad, that he's somehow immune to AIDS. I remember there was women on here that couldn't even believe that a white dude had AIDS when that Jason Pope story broke. They didn't even want to believe it at first. We had to get all the subpoenas and everything before they finally accepted that he was out there purposely, even though he said it in his own words from jump. He claims he got it from some black woman. So he was out for revenge. He wanted to give everybody HIV. And he wanted specifically to give it to black men that haven't done anything to him. In fact, it was because of the failure of the genocide warrior class that co-signed him and gave him his Wigga pass that he was able to roam the streets of South Carolina, devouring young girls and black women. Okay? He had a pass. But yet and still, the whole time he was plotting against those same black men. Believe you me, some of those genocide warrior class dudes that co-signed him, they got AIDS through him. So you sitting up there in the club with this dude, oh yeah, this is my favorite Wigga right here, Malibu's Most Wanted. And the whole time he's sitting there with that package to give to you through that female that you go bang and he's going to bang. So that's what we're talking about here with Gentry Burns. So based on the Florida statute 384.21, he's looking at for each count with each woman, 5 years and a $5,000 fine. So the charges are a little bit less severe in Florida than they are in South Carolina. But so far, because they have 3 women, they got 3 counts against them. But the Louisiana Sheriff's Office just put out a bulletin on your Mr. Gentry burning crotch. They just put out a PSA, and they're looking for any possible victims that have had sex with this man. And you guys know, like I said, today is Saint Ham, Halloween. And there are a lot of devils out looking for something to devour. And you got a lot of these Brad STD 1000 bioterrorists that are going to be out there looking for that white male worshiping chick that's going to throw herself at her Lord and Savior's feet. Oh, yeah. We don't even know how many of these cats are roaming the streets of America right now, man, because they have the greatest costume in the world, being white men. So they get a pass on everything. These dudes are predators, sexual predators. They're going after young girls. They're going after married women, single women. They don't care. They have a mission to destroy lives. You heard it from his girlfriend, his baby mama. She was brave enough to come forward. A lot of these white male worshipers, they're afraid to come forward because of the shame. So they don't care if this thing keeps spreading. They would rather protect their own public image than to save lives. At least those women came forward and said, look, this dude is dirty. I'm afraid of him. He's violent and dangerous, and he doesn't give two shits that he's passing this deadly disease on to whoever his victims are. And she named some of the states. So let's go ahead and look at what the sheriffs had to say. So this is the bulletin that was put out last week from Volusia Sheriff's Office by the detectives on the case. Update. It's believed that Gentry Burns traveled extensively along the East Coast of the United States and may have had contact with additional victims in other states. Detectives are asking anyone who believes they may be a victim to contact the Volusia Sheriff's Office. The best way to report your case is to email Detective Julian L. Mazzi at jelmazi@vcso.us. So that's the lead detective on Gentry Crotch Burns case. Okay. So it says, Port Orange man arrested on charges of failing to inform sexual partners of HIV infection. A Port Orange man with HIV has been charged with having sex with multiple partners without informing them of his infection. Gentry Burns, 26, is charged with 3 felony counts under Florida statute 384.242. After Volusia Sheriff's detectives identified 3 women who engaged in sexual activity with him without knowing he was HIV positive. The investigation started after an ex-girlfriend of Burns came forward to report she believed she contracted HIV from him while dating him in 2013. The victim had been reaching out to contact other women who were dating Burns in an attempt to warn them. So these are just the ones that she knew about. So he had multiple women at the time he was dating her, and she knew their numbers. She knew how to get in contact with these other women. But it says detectives confirmed through subpoenaed medical records that Burns was diagnosed HIV positive in January 2014. Detectives also identified 3 victims who cooperated with the investigation and confirmed they dated and engaged in sexual activity with Burns without knowing he was HIV positive. One was diagnosed HIV positive in 2017 after dating Burns in 2016. Burns was already in custody at the Volusia County Branch Jail on unrelated charges and will remain there on his new charges, for which no bond is allowed. Detectives believe other victims may still come forward. Anyone who has dated Burns and believes they might be at risk is urged to see a doctor and to contact the sheriff's office at 386-248-1777. Under Florida law, it's illegal for anyone who knows they have any of several sexually transmitted diseases to have sex with another person without informing them of the disease. Now, okay, so this is on the Volusia Sheriff's Office. That's down there in the Daytona Beach area, right? Orlando area. Now, what was interesting is that the women that dated him are in the chat section on his site. And these are some brave women to come forward and say, hey, I got HIV from this dude. I don't want anyone else to get it. So let's read some of the comments from some of the women that are connected with this guy and that are reaching out to other women. So one woman says, wow, what a horrific predator. It's like he set out to infect just for kicks. Major ooh. He has lived in North and South Carolina, Hawaii, and Georgia. There you go. So they just mentioned 4 more states outside of Florida that he's lived in since he's had HIV. We already know how they're getting down in South Carolina, the bottom shelf brass. We already know. So I don't know what it is about that Southeast region in particular, but like the brother that told me that these women don't get down like that in the South, every case I've seen so far is about some dude, some Brad STD 1000 down there transmitting as a bioterrorist these diseases to any women in sight. Okay, so we can kill that argument now. Let's see some more of these comments. And this is, you got to understand, man, this is a sheriff's office website. So these are strong feelings. Okay, so some person says, why isn't he being charged with first-degree murder or premeditated murder, however it reads in Florida law. I'm sure you can find cases like this where premeditated murder was upheld by the higher courts, since infecting someone with HIV is a death sentence for the ones infected. Now that's an interesting comment, because, you know, like I said, there's many people who believe that this is a serious crime. There's even some that believe castration and sterilization and life imprisonment or death. But then there's another group, your left authoritarians, that believe that people should be able to freely infect you. That's what they believe. So this is someone that disagrees with that belief. So I asked the audience, where do you stand on this? Should HIV be treated the way it is in South Carolina, where it's like 10 years for each count, or something like that? Or should it be more like what Florida's is, which is 5 years, $5,000 fine for each count? Or do you agree with the more draconian voices who believe that these people should be done like Nushan Williams has been done in New York, where he got a 12-year sentence for infecting 3 women, but he's been in jail for like 15, 20 years and he's never getting out because they moved him from prison after his original sentence was done to civil confinement. And that's a blank check with the governor, because they consider this guy, Nushan Williams, who is black, from back in the year 2000 or so, when he was doing what he was doing before he was convicted. They're not letting him out. The state of New York said he infected like 3 white women up there, and they're like, you're going to be on civil confinement for the rest of your life, because they consider him a threat to the public, and they know if they release him, he'll do what he did. Because remember, he bragged about how many women he gave HIV. He was only convicted of 3 or 4, but he bragged about saying he had sex with 300 women or something like that. So the state of New York said, okay, that's what you did, you're never getting out. So they have the strongest law under that, but it was because of a black man. Now we have a white face on this 20 years later. These white bottom shelf Brad dudes. So here goes some more of the comments. I believe he was also in Hawaii at the time. Castration should be allowed as a sentencing. Probably why can't these individuals have their dicks chopped off? Victims were given a resistant. It says that his victims were given a resistant strand of HIV. So this is the girlfriend who got HIV from him talking, because she got this very strong strand of HIV. And she says that some meds don't work for us. It's been a hard 6 years. I'm glad I can close this chapter in my life. So, I mean, she's going through it right now, and she's on the medication right now. She's doing those HIV cocktails. And apparently this Brad STD 1000 Gentry Crotch Burns, he is carrying like the most resistant strand of HIV right now. And he was just out there. He didn't give a shit, man. And you saw him in his mugshot. He's smiling. In his mugshot, he's smiling. There he is. This is a sociopath, man. We've talked about this before. What is up with these dudes, with these bottom shelf Brads, killing people, destroying lives, and it's all a joke to them? They think it's funny, and they show up to the station butt naked sometimes, shirtless, in whatever state of distress, like with the case with Joshua Burgess killing his daughter, the biracial girl in North Carolina. He showed up shirtless, talking about, I just killed and raped my daughter. But yet, these are the bottom shelf Brads that's held in a higher esteem as you as a free-thinking brother out here. And it's time for you guys to reject these narratives and these stereotypes that's forced upon you, while the real criminal is right there, right in your face, living next door with a smile on his face. Everything's funny to him. And he's out there trying to get your daughter, trying to get your sister, while the television in Hollywood is telling them that, oh yeah, this is the solution to your problems as an American black woman. But then when these stories break, the same Hollywood and the same corporate run media is not there to report these stories. They work both sides of the equation. So they make sure that they put out the propaganda against the black male to emasculate him, to denigrate him. But then at the same time, they sell this idea of the white God complex. But the moment that God gets AIDS, they're mute. A total silence campaign. So a couple more of these comments. Let me see what this is on the sheriff's site. So one person says, so sorry, Nikki Nicole, but your bravery in coming forward was so courageous. You saved so many other lives. I agree with that comment. This woman saved a lot of lives, because in the case of Jason Roger Pope, those women are so ashamed that most of them won't even come forward. And I heard this from BMT, Talk Media. when he was on my panel. He's down there working with these health care organizations, and he's saying that they have a big problem getting a lot of the ABW to come forward. So, you know, this is a different scenario. And then here's a woman that says he looks so proud. So she's speaking to his this sociopath's happiness about what he was doing. He doesn't care about getting caught. He doesn't care about going to prison. So let's see. How sad. I know you have a daily disease and put others at risk. To think you have the right to ruin their lives. Make this a hard lesson, those reading. Protect yourself. Use protection. Because obviously others do not care about your health. How selfish and how foolish of anyone to have sex unprotected. It's what decade? And you have all these resources and still don't take the time to safeguard yourself. Now you have a bunch of young women and men walking around HIV. Hey, no lies told. That's a great message. Safe sex, protect yourself, family planning, and birth control. This shit ain't that complicated no more. That's where we're at right now. This seems to be uncomfortable to some people. They're willing to stick their future into the burning pits of hell in someone's crotch that's on fire with an unforgiving package that leads to a slow and sometimes fast death, depending on which strand that you get. But that's a great message to have. A lot of people consider that corny. A lot of cats out here say, I can't get an STD. They think these things. They really believe this stuff. They believe that they're immune to getting an STD until it happens to them. And HIV, once you get that, you know, it's a slow death for you. And that just depends on your immune system. Because some people, they got low and weak immune systems without having HIV or AIDS. You know, that's why when Eazy-E, back when he caught HIV or whatever, he died fast, man, because all things considered, versus someone else with a stronger immune system with the right cocktails, enough money, they can live a rather, normal life. So it's a lot of genetic factors as well. Some people succumb faster than others to HIV and AIDS. So whereas you might see one person, oh, that person lived like 20 years with HIV. The other person might have died in 20 months. It depends on your genetics, depends on your bank account and other things. So to me, I agree with her. It's time to wrap it up, man. It's time to get those STD background checks too. There's no shame in telling someone that's going to have sex with you, hey, if you really want to get out with me and you want me not to use a condom, we're going to have to go get an STD check. But if otherwise, we're going to use a condom. So you got a choice. You know, no sex, condom, or let's get this STD test, because this shit is scary, man. Just the amount of people that are getting this disease from guys like your bottom shelf Brads, because like I said, they get a pass. Everyone looks at us as the American black man as the bad guy. Everything is blamed on us. You know what I'm saying? Donald Trump going through his impeachment inquiry, that's our fault. The Houston Astros lost the World Series, somehow that's a black man's fault. The China trade deal's going wrong with no black men in the room, no black men to be seen, no black men anywhere near. It's the black man's fault. So one of the great things about everything being your fault, we don't have any responsibility anymore. You see what I'm saying? This is the greatest time in the history of the black man to be free and to save yourself, because we're blamed for everything. And it's so outrageous and absurd, the things that we're blamed for, that it actually allows us this comfort because there are no expectations on us outside of ourselves, right? The whole society is allied against us. And so bottom shelf Brad is out here operating, destroying lives every single day. And through these YouTube streets, thanks to the brothers that have come before me and the other manifestation of this part of black male YouTube, have been hammering at this thing for 12 years now. And I get the feeling that 2020 is going to be a watershed year for black men in America. I really get the feeling, because this is the first time that we've exposed these kind of stories to the public. Black men 20 years ago couldn't do this. They may have known about a dude like this in their neighborhood that was acting as a sexual predator and carrier of HIV transmission to other people, but they didn't have the medium to put those messages out. So if the story hit the news, it might have hit the local news in the newspaper, never heard from again. And they had to deal with these guys in prison or something like that. But now everyone is in a position to be a citizen journalist now. You can go learn the who, what, when, where, why, and how on any topic and put out your own message. That's all I'm doing. I'm just putting out a message. And my message is that it's an end to black misandry in this generation. The millennials and the zennials are not going to be forced to live with this black misandry and just not have any response to it. Yes, Our enemies are aligned and they have big budgets. They have the numbers, but all it takes is that taking that slingshot that is the internet like David and doing the best that you can. And sometimes you can hit the giant right in his damn forehead. That we can do. Yes, they have the propaganda machine behind them. Yes, they have trillions of dollars behind them, but they can't stop a million nobodies from putting the message out. So the days of like denigrating black men unopposed, it's over with, man. So I just want to read a couple more of these comments. So let's see. So it's just some other women making comments about things that have happened to them. So many women on here would rather argue that condoms do not help prevent STDs or HIV. So I love to see those same women post how they prevent themselves from getting these things and what they tell their daughters or sons. If condoms aren't a solution or choice, what is? Arguing that it's not an option in a normal sexual encounter, so what is? It's not only sexual partners at risk. He also posed a risk to the correction staff, also including other inmates. In a medical emergency incident, he posed a risk to the paramedics and nursing health staff. If a blood transfusion is required, the risks are higher with cross-contamination. As being a former nurse with hemophilia, I pray he hasn't donated blood to the Red Cross blood bank. Wow, that's powerful right there. I hadn't even thought about that. What about you guys in the audience? Had you thought about the fact that not only was he exposing his wife, girlfriends, mistresses, and whores that he was banging, but he was also putting at risk at anyone that dealing with blood, like, you know, nurse staff, doctors, other inmates thing, because he didn't disclose this. And here you have the left authoritarians telling you, we want to make it legal for someone with HIV/AIDS not to have to disclose that they have this life-taking disease. That's a great point. That's a great comment. That's why sometimes I like reading comment sections. Not all the time, but sometimes I do. He worked in many states for a traveling company this year. Coworkers said he was sleeping with many women each night. This is an unbelievably scary story. Now, see, look at that. I told you, man. You cats is sleep, man. Bottom shelf Brad is select, man. He's select, I'm telling you. Listen to what the woman said. He worked in many states for a traveling company this year. Coworkers said he was sleeping with many women each night. I mean, damn, some brothers is happy to get like one a night. This brother was, you know, he had the orgy situation going on with HIV. So it's like, we don't even know how many people have been exposed to this disease from just 2 Brad STD 1000s, man. This model, this Brad STD 1000 model is deadly and effective. It is an effective model because somehow, I guess the panties just dropped. So maybe we should be taking notes on these dudes on the select life of bottom shelf Brad. Because apparently, whereas you can get 1, he can get 10 in a night. That's powerful. I wouldn't be surprised that once they start to round up all these bottom shelf Brads, if they start writing dating books while they're in prison or something like that. They might do something like that. Because most dudes be like, damn, how are you banging multiple women every night like this? Let me see. I'll bet anything that he'll be sure to tell Bubba in jail that he's HIV positive. That's just some of these cats is crazy as hell, man. That's a premeditation murder. Fry his ass. He has ruined the life of at least 3 women. Now he should pay for his crimes. Funny, when I worked for a city in VC, Volusia County, a friend dated a paramedic from VC who had hepatitis and never informed her of it. Unknowingly, she contracted it. So this woman is giving an example of how she knows someone that was unknowingly given hepatitis. And under Florida laws, that person could have brought criminal charges and filed a criminal complaint and at least gotten a chance of getting that person that gave him hepatitis 5 years in prison and, $5,000 fine. So I don't know. I guess I want to hear what the audience has to say. So I can, stop screen sharing and I'll look in the comment section because unfortunately I'm not able to, view comments while I'm reading these things. But let me see what the comments are. But yeah, so you know, this is old boy Gentry Crotch Burns. And I mean, the more and more I read these stories, man, I'm starting to really wonder how many of these Brad STD 1000s are being released on America right now, specifically Black America. I'm really wondering about that now, because they've been given such a pass and they've been operating so subtly, but yet so much in your face, because they've been given this great PR campaign that the male man is better than every other man, and especially the Black man. That's a great cover. You don't have to have no character. You don't have to have no merit. You just show up, and because you got $1 trillion advertising campaign on that gives you a positive stereotype versus someone like me as a Black man, all our stereotypes are negative for the most part. And they can show up and they can just slay. So I guess this is almost like an unfortunate karma for those that pedestalize Waldo and Brad, right? If you think about it, they pedestalize this person as a savior, their Lord and Savior. And now their Lord and Savior is taking their lives, because gods can do that. Gods get immunity. They can take your lives. They can sacrifice you. So I guess we can call this the cult of bottom shelf Brad. And these are their worshipers. And these are the sacrifices that they have made to their Lord and Savior, sacrificing their children's lives, sacrificing their lives. And if they have their way, the left authoritarians, they will be sacrificing your lives. They won't be sacrificing mine, because I'm all about safe sex. I have no shame in asking a woman, hey, you want to have sex without a condom? We're going to get an STD test and an HIV test now, right now, period. Ain't no way in hell I would give a Democrat my vote, even before I heard about the situation with them trying to overturn the laws that punish HIV and STD transmission to unknowing partners. I wasn't messing with them anyways. But I see the future that they're trying to create. And I'm not a Republican. I've said that many times. But I'm definitely not a Democrat, because I consider these Democrats to be left authoritarians. I consider the Republican Party to be mostly indifferent to me, and that any benefits I get from anything that they do is just based on it actually benefiting the male man and the male family. So it's almost like a secondary any benefits I get from that association. So I think we're in the situation as free thinking brothers, where we have to figure out what are our values, not the values that our grandparents and great grandparents passed down to us, but what represents the values of this generation. What are you concerned about? What are you interested in? I just gave an example, a simple question of, are you for overturning the laws that protect you and I and our future children and the current children from being given HIV by some middle-aged bottom shelf Brad who's stalking your 13-year-old daughter or son who has been programmed? See, it's interesting. When I was a child, we were told not to talk to strangers. And we were definitely told to be very weary of the male man and the male woman. That's what I was taught by my relatives. But my grandparents were born in Jim Crow. A lot of these people's parents were born in Generation X. They didn't experience Jim Crow. But my grandparents were born in Jim Crow. So they told us to be wary of all strangers, and especially when it came to the male people, right? But now these children are being told by the media and by Hollywood that bottom shelf Brad is the level up plan. So if this message is being pumped and pumped and pumped into your head that Black man bad, male man good, then it should not be all of a surprise, especially with the young females who are dying for validation and attention, that if one of these Brad STD 1000 walks up on them and smiles at them, that they will be very susceptible to joining him for cookies and nookie or whatnot, and then taking home a package. I mean, just think about that, man. This dude, Gentry Crotch Burns, got HIV by the time he was 20 years old, man. Most people, if you ask them, would never think about young people being the main transmitters of HIV, but that's what it's become. Because as our society becomes more and more unrestrained when it comes to sexuality and sexual liberation, this is going to be the consequences. America is turning into a STD petri dish. And because these roaring lions walking around to devour, some of these people got power, and they're trying to make it legal for them to devour you by law. they're taking all the protections off against you. You don't like, you're not even protected as an individual from saying, I don't want HIV. You know what I'm saying? Like, these people don't have to tell you. So you already got the HIPAA law. Shout out to Super Trez. He's in the health field, and he did a upload talking about HIPAA. But fortunately, in the states that have this law, it overrides HIPAA laws. So detectives, the courts, they can subpoena all medical records in the states that protect against knowingly transmitting STDs. But if these left authoritarians have it their way, the whole nation will be run by HIPAA laws, where even if your own significant other that you're married to has a disease, they don't have to tell you. So imagine marrying someone, because remember, back in my parents' generation, to get married, they had to do like blood tests and things like that. You could find out a person had HIV just because in most states, they used to have it where you had to take a blood test to get married. I think maybe only a couple have that rule still. I say, let's bring back that rule. Why shouldn't you take a blood test? Why shouldn't you take DNA test of all the children that are born? I'm all for mandatory DNA testing of every child born. Mandatory, paid for by health insurance. Bring back blood testing for married couples. I'm all for it. It's funny how all of these safeguards that were put in place by prior generations, those are the things they're trying to get rid of, the things that actually protect people. That's a scary thought, that you could end up marrying someone that has HIV or some incurable disease, and under the federal laws that the left authoritarians want to pass, they're able to keep that private. So that's something that you guys should be thinking about. Where do you stand on these kind of laws? So let me bring up the PSA for anyone that might be down there in Florida. Here is the information for you. If you know a white male worshiper that has been in contact with Gentry Crotch Burns, this is the information that you need to contact them. A shout out to the brother that dropped a super chat. Shout out to the brother Majin Goat. Definitely appreciate that, bro. If anyone else, I missed you in the chat, it's because when I do my screen shares, which I'm all about providing citations and references when I have these conversations, because they're indisputable, instead of putting my own opinions as the main point of the conversation. But if I missed anyone, salute to all y'all. I appreciate your support and, just having these conversations with me, because I'm telling you, man, I learned so much from these conversations, and it forces me to grow. And it also forces me to polish my talking points and to take a lot of what I feel and discard it for the facts of the matter. You see what I'm saying? Until I came into this space, I didn't understand how large the cult of Bottom Shelf Brad really was. But every day I'm learning how powerful the cult of Bottom Shelf Brad is, in the way that they protect these savage, predators from public disclosure. Really think on that. They really try hard to protect these people from public disclosure. And I'm definitely going to hey, and shout out to the homie Rollo. He's one of the passport bros. I appreciate the super chat, bro. Rollo, he's my guy. He's one of the passport bros. He did a panel. I came through and chopped it over him last night. You guys should go check that out. Any information that you need on anything related to traveling, go check out Rollo's channel, because that's all he talks about is travel. So yeah, but this case with Gentry Burns, it just represents an opportunity for Black men to start discrediting these voices that keep telling these young American Black women specifically that the answer to their problems is not to become more feminine, not to work on their fitness, not to become more attractive, not to become more cooperative, but the answer and solution to all their problems is to get them a bottom shelf Brad. That's what they're telling these women. And they're not telling this to the least desirable American Black women. They're selling this message from top down. This is a trickle down. They're starting at the top. Then we're getting to the point now where many of your most desirable American Black women, they're marrying white dudes. Yes, it's always a reverse hypergamy situation 9 times out of 10, where the woman makes more. So you like a Serena situation with the dude she's married to. But that message is being heavily promoted to these American Black women. And some of you have Black sisters, some of you have daughters, and you got to be careful about the kind of message that's being pumped into their head, man. And that's why it's so important that we continue this kind of discussion. So I got to ask the question at this point, like, who really is the face of HIV in 2019 as we go into 2020? That really becomes the question. Who is really the face of HIV? And I'm going to bring up something. Shout out to the homeboy, Dr. Phoenix. He's always got this good information on these kind of health stats. And I just want to share a chart that he gave me on the last panel so we can put this into context, this whole Gentry Crotch Burns, so you guys can see it for yourself when you have these discussions with people in your private life. Because, you know, there's this whole idea that black men are somehow really involved in this whole HIV thing, but it really is not black men at all. So on the screen, you have the statistics for HIV among African Americans. And what stood out to me when you look at like the new diagnosis chart is so let's just look at this male to male sexual contact thing versus heterosexual women. Now look at this, look at these statistics, man. The face of HIV is actually homosexual men. That is the face of it. Mostly homosexual white men are really the face of this. But within the black community, it's homosexual black men that represent 8 out of 10 of the cases. Look at the chart for heterosexual black men. Heterosexual black men have the lowest number. The only one that is lower than the heterosexual are asexuals. Black men that are not having sex at all. So the asexuals obviously have the lowest number. But next is heterosexual black men, only 14%. And they guess what? Those 14% of heterosexual black men are getting their HIV from that heterosexual black men. Look at the chart. 80% homosexual black males, 90% of heterosexual black females, 91% of them represent the HIV cases. So what you have is gay black men who are having sex with gay white men and everyone else, and these women who are okay having sex with that guy. But the heterosexual dude that sticks to strictly women, he's at the least risk outside of asexuals. But that's something that they cannot dispute. This is straight from the CDC. New HIV diagnosis among blacks. 91% of the females on the black side are heterosexual females. It's crazy when you look at that chart, man. So there's always been this conversation about who has the disease more, homosexuals or heterosexuals. Well, it's pretty clear that homosexuals have, just outrageous numbers of new HIV diagnosis. And they're the ones that are behind trying to decriminalize HIV and overturn these state laws that protect you and I. Because if you look at just this chart, what does it tell you? Those men are using that heterosexual black woman to transmit that disease to other heterosexuals. There's the chart right there that tells you that. It's obvious. Look at the numbers of heterosexual men, black men with HIV numbers versus the heterosexual black man. She has, because of the state that many American black women have put themselves in and fallen into, they don't know it, but they're becoming a medium of bioterrorism for the same people that they claim that are their enemies on one hand, which we know is not true, but they're the targets. They're being targeted and they're being used to incubate these kind of like walking dead viruses. I'm really serious, man. Maybe I sound like I'm exaggerating, but man, I could see a situation like some real Walking Dead if these left authoritarians get their way. So, okay, before I get off, I'm going to, read some comments from the comment section. Hopefully you guys learned something. At least you learned something about Florida law. You should have also learned that there's only 20 states that currently protect you at the felony level from unknowing STD transmission. And you should be thankful that that protection is there, because once that protection is taken away, I mean, it's going to be mandatory at that point that you either wear a condom, which doesn't protect you from some STDs, or you don't have sex, or you demand an STD test. So that's where we're at, man. It's just kind of just going backwards. So let me see. If there's anyone that want to come on, let me know. Otherwise, I'm gonna close things out. But if someone want to come on for 30 minutes, if you just had some initial thoughts, we could do that. So let me see. So let me read some of these comments. It's going kind of fast, but you just dropped a major bomb on this live stream. Hey, Mega Montana, it's not me. It's all of us. This is a team. This is a team effort, man. All we're doing is, pushing forward what brothers 12 years from now have been slowly pushing towards: Black male independence and the acknowledgement that the Black man is a free agent, and that the female counterpart that was assigned to you by the dominant society has acted more like a traitor openly, but low key, while she was blaming your father and your uncles for transmitting all this HIV to Black women. No. They've been sleeping with these white men. That's the truth. Jason Roger Pope and Gentry Burns represent what I'm talking about. These are the same dudes that on a night like Sayham Halloween can go into these clubs, and those women that are on that white male worshiping tip will throw themselves at the feet of these men. So that's just reality. They admit it's male on male. Those dudes are not hiding their alphabet status. It's almost like the Bible was right about them, says Turbattle. That's the interesting thing. Me being a non-religious man, but still being a respecter of the biblical text from the Old Testament and some of the more esoteric Christian manuscripts. I'm telling you, man, I'm almost amazed by some of the stuff I be reading in those texts, man, and how true it was. I'm always amazed. That's why I started with that quote from 1 Peter about the roaring lion that walks around looking for victims to devour, because there's some powerful stuff in those books, man, especially for someone like me, because I don't get into religious aspect of it. I just look at the knowledge. Is this something that's sensible that I can look at as a prism for what's going on? 9 out of 10, I find that some of that stuff, it tends to be a great lens to look at the world. But just back to the fact that this dude, Gentry Crotch Burns and DJ HIV, two guys doing that kind of damage, man. That's the part I want people to think about, is the fact that that's just 2 of them in 2 metropolitan areas that are doing that kind of damage. I'm really thinking to myself, how many of these Brad STD 1000s are there out there on a bioterroristic warfare? That's what I'm trying to ask. Because think about what it does. If you can send them into a situation like South Carolina, and one of them dudes can infect 1,000, ABWs or whatnot, and just say at a minimum that each one of those infects 1 Black man, so you got 2,000 or so infected. This is some shit where you're taking those women out of the procreation pool as well, because now these women are removed from being able to procreate. So you already have these low birth rates as it is in America. And if these women are being used as STD incubators to target Black men, you're removing them from the whole birth reproducing process for the most part. Most of these women will not be able to reproduce. Definitely the little girls, because if it's someone like me, I'm more on the side of South Carolina. I want to do like New York did to New Sean Williams. I'm going to make these laws even more stronger against you knowingly giving away HIV. So you're out of the dating pool. So there's that element as well. They're not just taking out these people's lives. They're also taking out their ability to have children. Like I was talking about New Sean Williams in New York. People forget he actually had 2 children before he went off to prison that were born with HIV. People forget about that part about it. It's not just you and the person that you consented to have sex with. If 2 people have HIV, that kid has a high chance of being born with HIV, which was the case with New Sean Williams, because both of his children were born with HIV. So there's that reproduction element there as well that we kind of ignore a lot of times. So let me see. Thinking brothers. So Sigma Jones says, thinking brothers need to start practicing eugenics. Keep your seed away from the contaminated gene pool of Black America. Man, I mean, it's not even a question at this point. I think that what has changed and what's going to be representative of the next decade for free thinking brothers is that they're going to start to understand that it was always about quality, not quantity. And many of us were raised by uncles and fathers and grandfathers that it was all about the quantity. My own grandfather was like that. He was all about the quantity in his generation, but they didn't have nearly the threats to their health that we have just from every level, man. Because they always had the problem of being a Black man in America, but damn, they didn't have this level of STD risk and all the other risks that we got to deal with outside of the growth of the 80-20 rule and how that impacts STD cluster spreading. I mean, it's just crazy. So yeah, I mean, as far as like valuing your seed, we're at the peak of that right now. We're at the peak of a generation shift where you're hearing more and more free thinking brothers saying, you know what, hey man, I would take quality any day over quantity now. And that's where we're at. So that is a form of eugenics. It was always supposed to be that way. You're supposed to practice voluntary genetics. And I do that simply by saying that I want a woman that's feminine, cooperative, admires me, and she's attractive and she takes care of herself. That's it. That's a filtering process that eliminates a lot of the bottom tier women from my life, a lot of the treacherous women, because I'm not letting myself be led by my penis. You can get yourself in a lot of trouble in this manifestation of Western society if you take that route. I mean, the shit is really scary, man, on these streets out here. And like I said, when I see these American Black women worshiping these white men, I just sit back and I scratch my head on it because they don't know that these dudes, if they really were that sexually interested in those women, there wouldn't be not one American Black woman birthing a black children at all, because they have that kind of clout with those women. So we know that it's more of an entertainment for these dudes when it comes to these white male worshipers. And in some scenarios, it's like some Turner Diaries level shit, man. That's what I think is going on. I think this is like some Turner Diary level type shit, man, where they're using this bio warfare against the sexual promiscuity among the ABW and some Black men. That's what I think is going on, because that's why they're targeting it through sex, because they realize that there's a lack of sexual discipline in many people that call themselves Black Americans. So that's something that we have to tell brothers and sisters out here to work on. You guys have to fall in love with wearing a condom, fall in love with financial family planning, fall in love with safe sex, man. And you can prevent a lot of this. So I'll read a couple more comments before I go ahead and dip off, because I will be back on Saturday with a discussion that I think is important to have for November. Turbattle says, solid renegade, the average Black woman collects bodies. I mean, it's no question. Just in general, your millennial woman has a body count by the age of 30 of like around 50, and that's what they're saying publicly. So American Black women have always had the most freest ability to move around. I've even read some white feminists where they say that they're envious of the freedom that American Black women have. And it is true. The most freest individuals in America are white men and American Black women. They are the most sexually free, the least policed. White women are policed to a large degree by the white men. Black men are policed by everybody. That's what I mean. So it's like the white man is, he's free. He can do whatever he wants to sexually to anybody, whatever. He can break all the laws. The white female is policed by the majority of white men. But the Black woman, she's not policed by anybody. The Black man is policed by everybody. So that's the strange thing. Even other Black men want to police the penis of the other Black men. So that's interesting in itself. Says, my bag is empty. I like my refrigerator full, bruh. Hey, I ain't mad at you. Sexual pleasure has its place, but I've had just as much pleasure on payday going and getting like a big 16-ounce steak freshly grilled. It gave me just about the same amount of pleasure. So I'm not mad at you. So ECOP says, good news is more and more Black women are deciding not to get pregnant and birth children into this dysfunction. That's good. You know, I think that's part of, you know, the whole quality thing. If those women are making that decision that, you know what, we got to slow down. We got to be more strategic in the way that we mate and reproduce, then that's good. That's a good sign. You see what I'm saying? Because I do have some hope. I still have a glimmer of hope that the Zenio females that are coming up, that they're noticing the loneliness amongst the older millennial Black women and the Generation X and the boomers. And I think specifically seeing how the Generation X female is ending up, you know, with 6 out of 10 of them being single mothers already, you know, I think that maybe some of the younger children may just use it as a chance to change around. That's the hope, at least. So all you can do is put information out there, give the younger people something to think about, and hope that they'll turn it around. You know, I tell you should never give up hope, man, but you should operate in a practical manner. You should base your decisions on concrete evidence, facts, your own self-interest. But that still doesn't mean that you can't have hope for the next generation and give them the tools and information that they need. You can't walk them to the, you know, the water to drink necessarily, but you can give them the information where, hey, this is what happened to the last generation. If you don't want this to happen to you, rethink your moves out here. So that's where I'm at with it. Post office gets you a passport. What are you talking about? Thanks to dude's thoughts. I don't know what he's talking about. So Prince Jaren says, I lost hope after DJ Kid. Yeah, I mean, the DJ Kid thing, it was an eye-opener for a lot of people. But for me, I've always kind of had that feeling because I remember the first time it really occurred to me how strong the white male worship cult was when that show Scandal hit the television. And I saw how many Black women I personally knew that were obsessed with this television. And I remember asking a Black woman I was talking to at the time, I said, so this show Scandal, at a time when we have a Black president, you don't see it as a mockery of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama? And she was like, no, it's not a mockery. I said, okay, so let me make this make sense. We have the first biracial president and Black first lady in office. Wouldn't it make more sense for the Scandal TV show to be about a Black president having an affair with a white woman? And she was just stuck. I said, why would they put out this scandal during the Barack Obama administration? They could have put this out during Bill Clinton. They could have put it out during Donald Trump. They put it out at a specific time for specific messaging. And she didn't understand that. And I remember back at that time, because I've never once watched one of those shows, ever, not even one episode. All I needed to do was see the previews and hear a couple chats, and I was like, I'm good. Just like with that show Watchmen. Unfortunately, I watched the first episode, and right away, boom, emasculation of the Black male. Off jump. And I watched the whole episode. Won't be watching it again. So I'm falling more and more into my own, like, you know, entertainment that I find amongst the brothers, man. But I remember that, man, that Scandal show was huge, man. It was everywhere. And that was the beginning of the public white male worship agenda. It really started with that show Scandal, if you think about it. If you go back to that time, they weren't very public with it. The whole conversation at that time before that was about how Black men were sleeping with the male chicks. That was the whole conversation. But the moment they released that Scandal show, which was a mockery, you see what I'm saying, of Barack Obama and Michelle Obama, then all of a sudden, every magazine, all these Black magazines went from Black family. Hey, shout out to Art Nusto. Go check him out, man. Glad you stopped through. Yeah, if you guys go back and look at those magazines that were big in like the 80s and 90s, all of them are in bankruptcy now because what happened is that not just a lot of people, they concentrate on the technology. Well, they're like, oh, you know, everything went online. That's true to a certain extent, but that's not the reason that it happened so quickly. If you really study like these Madame Noirs, Jet Magazine, Essence Magazine, Ebony and all those kind of magazines, Black Enterprise, they really went away from a Black family message. And they really strongly went towards a alternative sex message. And then they went towards a, at the end over the last 5 years, I would say, really pumping up the bottom shelf Brad agenda. And that's why they're in bankruptcy now. You see what I'm saying? And that's why everyone's so angry right now that you have dozens and dozens of Black men coming out and just talking their shit For the first time, they got rocks now. For so long, black men have just been able to sit there like piñatas and take all this verbal and psychological abuse from these misandrists, specifically these black misandrists. We were the only group that it was acceptable to beat down and to try to destroy our masculinity because, again, black men have the highest natural, on average, testosterone levels of any man. And if you really think about that, that's pretty tremendous when you consider that many of us have poor diets. Many of us come from low-income families. You know, when you add in all the other environmental factors, you would think that the American black man would have naturally the lowest testosterone levels. But I'm telling you, man, while you have these famished lions walking around to devour people, we're kind of like kings that don't understand that we're kings, if you want to be honest, because that's like a tremendous accomplishment to still have the high levels of testosterone level that we have as black men, considering the malnourished environments that we come from that don't nourish our minds, don't nourish our bodies, and damn sure don't nourish our souls. But there's something that's like very powerful about being a black man, especially an American black man, because they want to destroy us, bro. I'm telling you, when I read that whole thing about DJ Pope, man, and him saying that he was targeting black men, and you had these genocide warrior class co-signing this wigger, that let me know how afraid of us they really are, man, on all levels. So that was just one of the guys that's coming around, turning his hat backwards with this whole anti-black male mission. Because some people I've told before, man, stop thinking that black misandry is about women and men. No, black misandry simply means a hatred of black men. That includes other men, regardless of race or whatever. They hate black men. But the time is over for us just sitting back and taking it. So I'll read these last few comments, and I'm going to go ahead and close this out. But I really do appreciate everyone coming through. Shout out to Black King. He was the one that put me on to that story. And, you know, there's other brothers that have been sending me stories as well. But unfortunately, you know, I do this casually on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And I am collecting a database of these bottom shelf Brad stories. And I got a couple on deck that I read about that are very sad. So definitely look forward to that in the coming weeks. But we're going to keep this series going as long as they keep doing the white male worship. So when I stop hearing these white male worshipers being so forthright and blunt with their worship and their misandry against the black man, then we're going to just keep pumping this shit out. So that's kind of where we're at right now. They keep doing their worship, and we're going to keep undermining their worship and their credibility. Because these same people will not come forward with this information. I read a case about a black male football player who was accused falsely of rape by a male chick. I talked about it, and I'm going to continue to talk about it because it's not a pedestallation thing with me. I'm telling people out there, go be happy, man. Go find your happiness, but start with yourself. It starts when you center yourself and you focus on who you are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and you focus on becoming a self-actualized individual and attracting positive, inspirational people to you. That's all. That's the only information I can really give someone, to do that. And stop searching for your happiness and your completion in other people. And it really gets chaotic when you start trying to search for it in other races of people and other ethnic groups, when it's really about you as an individual. Start there. Start with yourself. So with that, I'm going to close this out. And man, I appreciate all y'all coming through and showing support. I plan to be back on Saturday with a good discussion on a case that I've been looking into. So with that said, I'll see you guys later. You all have a good week, and be safe out there if you decide to go out for this Sayham, quote unquote, Halloween evening, because the devils are walking amongst us. And be very wary of those Brad ST1000 bots, because they will be out tonight. With that said, peace.